It's movie time, and we're back again with movie time. Hey, everybody. I'm your host, Grayson. I hope that you guys thought that I wasn't going to be disappearing from you too soon. And I'm here with the amazing Hamad Sadie. Hey, Hamad, how are you doing?
Hey, everybody. I'm doing great. Welcome from Redondo Beach, California.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've done a movie time episode, and everybody's kind of really super excited and keeps asking, when are we going to do one? So, perfect opportunity for us.
No, it's going to be a lot of fun. And as well, your viewers don't know, but I met you at Sundance about a month ago. We talked about this, and I'm really excited to do this.
Oh yeah, me too. I'm super excited. Can you tell us though? It's like for everybody who doesn't know who you are, a little bit more about you and about your company.
Yeah, absolutely. Although this is going to be kind of a laundry list. Is that okay?
That's okay.
All right. So my name is Hamad Zaidi. I'm the founder and CEO of the Lonely Seal Company Group. Mainly there's more than two parts of it, but the two main ones are Lonely Seal Releasing, which is an international distribution and sales company, which means that we go to Cannes, Berlin, Sundance, Toronto, Hong Kong, Tokyo. We go around the world to buy and sell motion pictures. So that's that part of it. The newer part of it is the Lonely Seal International Films, Screenplay, and Music Festival. I'm really tired because I usually work till 2 o'clock in the morning, so I apologize for that. But
the good never sleep.
no, I never do. I get like 4.5, 5 hours of sleep a night, and that's it. So our festival launched deep into the Film Freeway Top 100 Best Reviewed, which is awesome. We've got great filmmakers. About 50% of our filmmakers are women. We also tailor to minorities, disabled filmmakers, LGBTQIA, just everyone. We like showcasing stories that are aching to be told. And Odette, our festival is in October at the Regent Theater in Arlington, Massachusetts, which is right outside of Boston. And it's a 104-year-old classic vaudevillian theater. It's really fun.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And in fact, you know what? I'm trying to think because I've got all these codes. I'm trying to think about what code I can give your viewers if they want to apply to our festival. We'll give a 20% discount code. So let me try to figure that out, and we'll make sure they have it. Aside from that, I've judged film festivals for the last 23 years. The poster right behind me is the first one I ever judged, Flickerfest in Sydney, Australia, specifically on Bondi Beach, which was incredible. Over the years, I've been a panelist at Slamdance for several years, World Cinema Screener at Sundance, Filmmaker Advisor at South by Southwest. So I have a deep understanding of the whole filmmaking, film festival route thing. And let's see, I'm trying not to babble, but I have a few more to talk about.
No, that's okay.
I wrote a column on Film Threat for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
200. Chris Gore Film Threat and Mark Bell at the time was the editor. They published 256 of my articles. The column was called Going Bionic. Now there's over 300 of them, and you can go to goingbionic.com if anyone wants to read them. All of them deal with international film distribution as well as filmmaker strategy, meaning how to get your career moving forward if you're a writer, producer, director, blah, 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 right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's another part of me. And the newer stuff is that I'm one of two founders of a brand new company called Hourglass 24, which is micro crowdfunding. And what that is we want to help people raise seed money for their crowdfunding projects. And the kicker is we're going to do it in 24 hours, not in 30 days, not in 60 days.
Wow.
And we did our research, and most money raised of any campaign is the first 12 hours and the last 12 hours. So instead of wasting 30 days or 60 days trying to convince people to give you money, utilize our nearly 1 million backers and your creative ideas and jump onto Hourglass 24, submit your stuff, and hopefully we can get you some seed money within 24 hours. So, I'm doing that. And to wrap up, I'm a member of the Writers Guild of America and the Producers Guild of America. And my hobby is to be a adjunct professor and or lecturer at many film schools. I've taught at UCLA, which is my alma mater, lectured at KU once, and lectured at UMKC once, both in Kansas and Kansas City. Vanderbilt, taught at Chapman University, taught at Avila University, lectured at San Diego State for about 12 or 13 years. So I love doing it, and I love helping people get from where they are now to their next level.
Oh,
So that's
absolutely.
kind of who I am.
Very cool. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's like there's a multiple of hats, and it's like which I definitely would love to chop into each and every one of these hats. So let's start off with the first one. Also, it's like with the buyer producer. In regards to that, it's like, so when you're looking at it from a buyer's perspective, it's a lot different than looking at it from just only a distributor's perspective, as well as also that, because it's like you're the one who's actually helping towards the companies and the exhibitors towards actually, and the distribution companies towards actually getting the buy. So you have to be more aware and alert in there.
Yeah, absolutely. The whole thing is, here's the sad thing, and it's true. That's why I'm trying to help your viewers with the truth. The sad thing is, the movies you love are not always the movies that are going to make you money, right? And I'll give a story, and I won't say names of what projects, but I will tell this story. Over the years, I personally invested in about 23 motion pictures, right? Whether it be as an executive producer, mainly as an executive producer, and or as a straight investor without credit. But usually it's as an executive producer. So years ago, we were going to the Cannes Film Festival, which my company does every year. We've had a standing booth at the Cannes Film Market during the festival for 15 years now. And I've been attending Cannes for 18 years now, right? So we go to Cannes. Before we go to Cannes, someone comes to me with a sci-fi film that needs to be completed. And this happens a lot. There's been more than one. But one of them came to us and said, we need X amount of dollars to complete the film. Can you help us? And you can turn around and distribute it. So we did that. When I saw the movie, there were beautiful parts about it, but I'm just being honest. I'm like, what is this? What did I invest in? Right? And then we had an investor screening, no, a buyer screening at Cannes. And the screening was packed. I mean, not a huge theater, but it was about 80 buyers. And it was packed. And I'm being totally honest, because I timed it. Within 11 and a half minutes, every single person left.
Wow.
Right? And I turned to the guys that worked with me at the time, who are still great friends of mine. And I'm like, dude, I'm gonna lose my shirt. This is crazy. No one's gonna buy this. And one of the guys that worked with me, Grant, he just said, just relax, Hamad, just relax. And so I stormed away, and I'm like, oh my God, I just ate a very large amount on this sci-fi film that I believed in, but didn't turn out the way I wanted it to, right?
Yeah.
And all Grant said to me is, just wait, dude, just wait. And so, long story short, before we left Cannes, it sold for a lot, right?
Very cool.
And what surprised me is what Grant taught me is, he goes, listen, buyers are not viewers. Buyers are buyers. When they see something they want, they know they want it, and they want to get out of the theater and go to the next screening, right?
Yeah.
They have no interest in sitting in your movie theater for an hour and 36 minutes if they can watch 11 minutes and say, yep, I'm buying it, and move on, right?
Exactly.
So the other sad thing, which is not, it's sad because filmmakers don't get it, but it's not really sad overall, is that filmmakers should know this. I tend to be different because I'm a UCLA film school kid. I'm a writer. I'm a producer, and I love the creative process.
Yes.
But a lot of buyers, they could be buying movies, they could be buying tires, They could be buying toilet paper. To them, it's a commodity. They find out what it's worth and they sell it for the best price they can and they move on. So what filmmakers don't get is most buyers have no interest in watching your film, right? What they have interest in is seeing
Can I
what
sell it?
act. Yeah, can I sell it? Is it the right genre? Does it have actors in it that are bankable? And if all those boxes are checked, you're going to make money. And who cares if they don't see it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's again. I promised myself I'd give you the real truth
Yes.
about stuff. So I'm trying to do that. But most buyers will not watch a movie in its entirety. But that's not any different than most agents who don't read screenplays in their entirety either.
True.
If they like it and they can package it, it's a go.
Yeah,
Right?
and same thing with investors. They don't really want to read a whole long, drawn out speech. It's kind of okay, tell me what this movie is about. Tell me, can I make the money? What's my ROI?
Yeah. In fact, can I jump into that real quick?
Yes.
Being someone who's directly invested in a bunch of indie stuff, I will tell you, I have never, and underline the word never, read a business plan start to finish. Right? If somebody comes to me with a movie that I want to invest in, I'll know right away if I want to invest in it based on the genre and who they have attached, and based on who they are. Now, if they're extremely talented and they're just not a nice person, I sit there and think, do I want to talk to this person 5 days a week for the next 2 or 3 years? If the answer is no, then I'm going to pass. I might give them, I might give them contacts on who I know who would do it. But to me, taking on a film is like getting married in the sense that you're with that person for at least several years, right? Depending on the length of the contract. And they have to like you and you have to like them. And there's got to be trust. And if there's not, there's really no reason to work with that person. And there's no reason for them to work with you if they don't feel the same way about you.
Absolutely. And so when they're actually pitching to you or they're actually telling you about the project, what are some of the greatest mistakes that a lot of people make in terms of that could rub you also the wrong way, but also rub a person the wrong way?
Well, it's not so much, that's a great question. Thanks for asking it. It's not so much rubbing me the wrong way. I like helping people. I like, I believe in karma, and I've been blessed at a very significant level in many areas, not just my career. I've got a wonderful wife. I've got 2 healthy daughters that are, I've got a great dog that's quiet right now and is not barking during this. So my life is really, really good. And I believe that if you throw out good karma, it comes back to you. So I'm always trying to help. I will say this. A story, a movie, okay, how do I say this? Let me give you an example. Here's what irks me. When filmmakers come to me and say, hey, dude, I've got a $14 million project, but I can do it in $280,000 if you just give me that, right? I chuckle and I'm like, wait a minute, how many times have you heard that?
Yes.
And a lot. And I chuckle and I'm like, wait a minute, dude, it's not just the budget of your project, it's the scope of your project. Certain projects are meant to be 25, 30, 40, 50, $100 million projects. And certain projects are meant to be $1.6 million moonlight projects that win the Oscar for Best Picture, right?
Yeah.
It really depends. You can't say, I need $16 million, but I'll do it for $300,000. No, it doesn't work. That just says that you're desperate to get your movie made and you don't understand the scope of what your movie's really worth.
Yeah.
That's one thing. The other thing that always makes me laugh is when somebody has an $848,000 project and they're paying themselves $300,000 to direct.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I know that one.
Right? And it's funny
because
I'm like, hey, listen, you're talented. I hope someday you get a $3 million directing fee, but you can't take 40% of a budget as director when you haven't done anything before. You couldn't even take 40% of a budget as a director at any budget, right?
Yes.
Regardless of the budget.
Well, this is the
So,
whole thing. That's why they have a rate that's built in with the Directors Guild. It's like, look it up.
well, you know, one thing that will help is if you really want to get out of debt and you've got a lot of bills and you really
Mhm.
need to get your movie to help you get out of debt, then do something like this. Pay yourself more than minimum, but pay yourself a reasonable amount. But then put in step bonuses in your contract with your investors. Like you say, it's a $1 million movie. You know, Writers Guild minimum is 84,000. I think it's lower than that for
Yeah.
movies under 2.5 million. But you know, so pay me 60. But if it gets, you know, if it gets nominated for an Oscar, I want a $500,000 bonus. Or if it gets nominated, or if my movie makes $5 million or more, I want a $50,000 bonus. If it hits 10 million or more, I want 250,000 more. And people will be a lot more open to paying you bonuses if your movie performs. But every investor is going to be dead set against paying you a lot before you've proven yourself.
Yes.
You know?
And also it's like a lot of times it's I want to produce a movie, but I want to have $1 million salary as a producer is another one that I love. That one's a really fun one too, because it's like,
Well, yeah, and you know what? I think everybody should have $1 million
sure,
producing fee, but guess what? Have a $35 million film then,
exactly.
right? I do know one film where I was not involved in, but a friend of mine showed it to me.
Mm-hmm.
They had an $8.5 million budget to do a religious themed movie, and they paid themselves far, far, far too much. Like they'd never sold anything before, but they paid themselves 850,000 to direct and 750 to write. Like they ate up the entire budget.
Wow.
And yeah, and they ran out of money. So they were looking for several million more just to finish. But when you actually saw the finished film, it looked like it cost maybe $300,000 or $400,000. Like the production value was not there at all. And it's sad because all the money was just eaten in all the fees they were paying themselves, and none of the value was actually on screen. So their
Yeah.
investors obviously lost everything, and they walked away with a nice paycheck. So I guess, you know, they did well on it, right?
Sure, but it's also what is your goal behind that? Is it to make the movie so that you get the next movie done? Is also what like what is the movie like? For example, we were talking about a little bit about social interaction and social media and having social causes coming in with that. Like for example, promoting films with disabilities. If we have organizations that are attached to certain films, to be able to promote that as well. And, making social change. It depends what it is that you want to accomplish as a filmmaker.
Sure.
Are you just here to make a really cute, fluffy movie that, everybody's just going to love and go, oh my God, that was so fluffy and cute, and walk out one day later and not even remember you?
Sure.
Or are you a legacy?
Well, that's true. And I also think, here's a question I have for you and for all of the viewers. Would you rather have an Oscar for an indie film that did not great at the box office? Or would you rather have, a Star Wars that made $2 billion but won you nothing? And I think that's a question that all filmmakers should ask themselves, because they should know kind of where they want to be. And both sides are valid. One's not better than the other. I mean, you can't say anything against the men and women that direct enormous Marvel films. I mean, who wouldn't love to have a $400 million budget, right?
Sure.
But it all depends on what they want. Yeah, right. How about you? What would you prefer?
I'm actually on the side of I'd rather have a movie that makes a social impact change in regards to that. It's like actually really has an impact. And in terms of awards, it's like awards are nice, but awards just sit there and go, goody for you. You did that. I'd rather have something that has social impact and change, that changes lives. And you know what? Even if I never saw an accolade, if it was successful, the movie in terms of that, of changing lives and also
Sure.
being successful box office wise, that would make me the happiest filmmaker of all.
Yeah, you know, one that people completely forget is that movie Free Willy. Remember that film?
Yes.
That movie didn't do amazing money, but it did well enough that the theme parks that Warner Brothers owned got rid of their orca whales.
Yeah.
There was such a backlash that, wait, you can't make a movie called Free Willy and still have whales in your theme parks, right?
Yeah.
So that movie itself released a lot of whales, which is great.
Yeah. It's like, and that's the important part, is that it's like movies like that that made a change. Suddenly
Right.
it's like, you know, there was the orca whale in a movie, or, you know, it's something that stems a movement to go ahead and do something about a social cause or a social change.
Sure. Of
It's
course.
like, or to make awareness of something that you didn't know before. It's like, for example, there are filmmakers that it's like that people just sit there and go, "Really, you want to be a filmmaker? Why is it that you want to be a filmmaker?" And
Yeah. You know what I want to do with that?
yeah,
I just want to tell stories.
exactly.
Of all the things that I do, I love writing the most. And I just want to tell good stories. Everything else, I'd let go. If I could just sit here at the beach in Redondo, where I am right now, and just sit in my UCLA shorts, UCLA t-shirt, look out at the beach and write all day. If I
Mm-hmm.
could have that life, that's what I would do. But I've got too many things going on right now to get there.
That's okay. You can do that when you're 100.
Yeah, maybe when I'm 93, maybe.
Yeah. You know, be like Arthur Hiller, do the last one at 98 years old before he passed. And
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the guy that wrote the King's Speech was
yeah.
73 years old. So it's
So
possible.
it's never too late. It's never there shouldn't be anything that holds people back. What do you feel is also the biggest thing that, in terms of challenge, that holds people back from accomplishing the goal that they want to accomplish?
Oh, what a great question. I actually think most people are afraid to get their goal. I really believe that. I believe that most people say they want to be a director, writer, producer, actor, whatever they want to do, but they're deeply afraid of, like, holy shit, what if it actually happens? Then what? You know?
Yeah.
And getting there is hard. Staying there is harder, right?
Yeah.
So, I think the biggest hurdle are people themselves. Plus, I also think that people don't like hearing negative things about their creativity, you know, including myself. Nobody likes it, right? But you kind of have to get used to that. You have to grow thick skin very early on. One thing I'll tell you that I always tell people is, when you write your screenplay, give it to people that don't really have a connection with you. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you give it to your best friends or your writers group or your spouse, they're not going to tell you the truth, right?
Yeah.
Because the writers group is going to think, if I bash his script, when it's my turn to read my pages, he's going to bash mine, right?
Yeah.
And I guess older writer groups are better with that. But if you're, especially in film school, when you're in film school, it's so much easier just to tell everybody you love their work than it is to tell them the truth, because that's when you start losing friends, right? But
True.
it's better to know what's really going on so you can get better faster and get to where you want to go faster. So I do believe the biggest hurdle are the people themselves.
Also, a lot of it, would you say, is also self-sabotage in terms of that? They hang on to the project so much and not trust that others can help them, that they actually, what I called it to somebody else the other day, is like choking a baby.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. Of all my projects, there are two that I want to direct. There are one of those two that I have to direct. And everything else, I'd just be interested in being a writer and or producer on it, right?
Yeah.
And you have to know, like, which ones are you going to dig in on, which ones are really yours. And then which ones would you be happy just getting a large check or even a medium check to selling and moving on? Because it's crazy how people dig in. One thing is to say, yeah, I want to direct it, but please help me make my vision. That's one thing. But how many people have you met that say, I'm the editor, I'm the director, I'm the writer, I want to score it, I want to
Yep.
produce it, and everything is my vision. And if you don't like it, goodbye. And I'm like, goodbye, right?
Yeah.
Because that works 1 out of every 58,000 times, right? So it's not something that normally works. And the times that it does work, those filmmakers that do everything on their movie probably did everything on their movie because they had no money and they were forced to, not because they didn't want other people's help, right?
Yep. And a lot of
So
times they say that if you wear too many hats, that one of the hats suffer the consequence of it, because
yeah,
it's one or more hats will always suffer.
yeah, I think that you can be brilliant at one thing and very, very good at a few others, but you can't be brilliant at everything.
Yeah.
You know?
You have to know when to bring somebody else in and say, okay, help me carry the baby.
Yeah, absolutely. Or
To the
help
goal.
me grow the baby.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, because it's like I'm choking it and turning it blue at the moment.
Yeah, and you know what's funny, Odette, is that it's not your baby. You may have written it, you may have directed it, but it's the baby of everyone that helped you make it.
Yes.
It's not yours, right?
Yeah.
Plus, it takes it takes its own life on. After a film's edited, it's its own entity, right?
Absolutely.
So,
And
you know,
another thing that a lot of people don't understand, and they don't, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's like a lot of people are like, well, I want to edit the thing, or I get final cut. I've said to people a million times, yeah, good luck to you on that one.
well, you know what, you know,
Until you get to a certain level.
well, you know what's funny is the people that I work with, they say, do you want final cut for the film? I just finished a screenplay about my childhood, and that's the one that I want to direct. And people say, do you want final cut? I'm like, no, I don't. I want to be able to give a cut. Like, let me give
Yes.
the cut. And then I would appreciate it if they allow me to recut it after they give me notes. But that's up to them. My thing is, of course I want final cut. Who doesn't? But
Sure.
if you're dealing with a studio or a major financier and they say, we'll let you do this, we'll let you direct it, but we need to control it. That's great. Why not? Right?
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, even to the point where I'd be in a situation where I'd say, listen, bring on your own producer, bring on your own AD, bring on whoever you want to bring on to make sure we're not slipping behind. Do whatever you need to do. Bring your team into what I'm doing. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't believe that people don't want that. Everyone's like, no, 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 no. My people, and I'll just deliver the film at the end. And I'm like, you know what? Just think about what you're doing. You're asking somebody to give you millions of dollars and then to go away, to wait for you to finish
Yeah.
and then come back with something without any input. That's,
Mm.
that's crazy, I think.
Yeah, that's a shoot yourself in the foot kind of the deal.
Oh, sure, of course.
Because you can't ask somebody to give you millions of dollars and say to them, nope, but you don't get to have an opinion in there. You don't get to have somebody who you trust be part of that.
Well, I mean, the thing is, it's such a huge, people don't realize, because millions are used so easily in the film industry, people don't realize how much money that actually is.
Mm-hmm.
With the average American household income being like $58,000 or something like that, right? That's 19 years of income to do a low budget $1 million movie. So it is quite a bit of investment from the investor standpoint.
Oh, absolutely.
That's why they're serious about what they invest in. So what do we want to jump into next?
Well, I'd love to talk about also from the film festival point of view, as well as also in terms of film that you're seeing as you're building into the next level of that with the film festival
Sure.
community, is seeing the diversity. Are you starting to see a lot more diversity in pictures and points of view in there? It's like, has it evolved, or are we still going with, okay, it has to be a North American story, or it has to be, but do
Well,
you get special characters?
well, no, you do. And I mean, the fact that Parasite just won Best Picture says a lot about how things are changing, right?
Yes.
But aside from that, what's interesting is at the Cannes Film Festival, it's not just American films, it's the films of the world. So you see everything. Whereas Sundance, which is incredible, and I love Sundance to death, Sundance has a world cinema section, but they do focus on a lot of North American stories, which is fine because that's what they do, right?
Yes.
Although they're growing a lot on the world cinema side too. They've got, they've got screenings all over the world now. So they're also very international. But what I find is, I guess you see what you want to see. At my
Yeah.
film festival, like I said, we're taking about 50% of our filmmakers that we accept are women. Now, that's because that's a couple of reasons. For one reason, a lot of women
Mhm.
directors submit to us, right? So that's one
Yeah.
reason. But the other reason is if I personally like a film a lot, and there's two films that I love, and one is made by a woman and one is made by just a guy, and there's only one slot, I'm probably going to give it to the woman, probably, because they deserve more opportunities. And me being a minority, I love helping, you know, everybody that needs their voice to be told more. However, let me just say, can I explain
Yes.
something? My festival has between 15 and 20 screeners every year, and 5 to 8 final judges. So what I do is I watch as many as I possibly can, but I go in and only make the final decisions when there needs to be a decision made on the winners, right? So
Hmm.
so it's not just me hanging out saying, okay, I like this, don't like this. It's usually 15 to 18 people that are screening and viewing and judging. And they go through round after round after round, both screenplays and movies and documentaries. So, you know, it's great that we've had like a 51% woman ratio. I think it's wonderful. But that's kind of how it's laid out the last 3 years.
Well, it's kind of exciting as well to hear a different perspective and point of view. And if only, like I always say, that if only Hollywood was catching up with that, in terms of that, you have diverse points of view. You have people from so many cultures and so many countries.
You know what?
It's,
Hollywood catches up with money,
yeah.
right? 20 years ago, 15 years ago, around that time frame, if I were to tell you that I wanted to bring a major Asian star to Hollywood to do a big buddy picture, you'd be like, it won't work. It won't work. And then Jackie Chan does Rush Hour, right?
Yeah.
And explodes. And all of a sudden, Jackie Chan does several big movies in Hollywood,
Yes.
primarily because Rush Hour worked. And Hollywood is really good at duplicating what works, right? If Rush
Yes.
Hour would have bombed and never made money, then Jackie Chan wouldn't have had the opportunity to do what he does in Hollywood. Now, obviously, he's a global star who never needed Hollywood because he was enormous all over the world before he started doing Hollywood movies. But my point is, success is what drives change in Hollywood, if that makes sense.
It does.
You know?
And it's also, it's as well, because when you're looking at the European film industry, it's like they're just so diverse in their stories.
Of course.
It's like movies from outside of North America are just so broad and rich with perspective.
Yeah, they are. And you know what's crazy is when I go to Cannes every year, I always meet with European directors, and I always tell American filmmakers, especially the college kids and the young ones, I'm like, you people have no idea how serious Europeans take film. If you speak to a European director, you might as well be speaking to a brain surgeon because they take their craft that seriously, right?
Yeah.
And you know that because you just said that you've dealt with them, and it's a whole different world over there. I mean, they make beautiful stories. However, a lot of their governments fund most, if not all, of their movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And their budgets are a lot smaller than American budgets. Their budgets are, 3 million, 5 million euros. They're not like $400 million. They're much, much, much smaller, so they can take risks, and they already have built-in distribution. And the fact that the government helps pay for some or all of their budget makes it even easier.
True.
Easier to take risks, not easier to make a good film. It's always hard to make a good film.
Oh, yeah. It is hard to make a good film, and it's also hard to be able to be inclusive of everybody within it. And it's like what I'm liking is the fact that there are now newer platforms that are coming out, new things that are coming out, which is kind of exciting. And which also brings us in also within that subject as well. And with film festivals, film festival channels that are coming forward.
Sure.
There is also streaming that's coming forward. What do you think is going to be actually the next innovation?
That's a really good question. I will tell you this. Now that the success of Disney Plus is booming, a lot of studios want to create their own, but I'm telling you, I don't think that's going to work because, excuse me, people aren't going to say, well, I want to pay $6.99 for Disney and $4.99 for Columbia and $3.99. They're not going to do that. People are going to get tired of it being splintered, and they're going to say, I just want to go to one location and get everything.
Yeah.
And I think that's ultimately what's going to happen. I mean, do you remember when 3D came out?
Yes.
Everyone said every movie from here on out is going to be in 3D. And even back then, I wrote articles about it saying, I don't think this is going to last. I think this is more of a fad. Because eventually people will get bored of it and they'll start saying, we don't want to pay $19 to see a movie just because it's in 3D. We'd rather pay $13.50 and watch it in 2D. And that's starting to happen now in the sense that a lot fewer films are blasting everything out to 3D. Right?
I've been looking at it. It's like I looked at it at the time that 3D was coming out and saying, you know what, 3D definitely is a fad. I think the virtual reality is going to actually be our next one that comes in where you're actually going to be able to interact with the film.
Yeah, no, that should be really, really cool. Virtual reality should be a lot of fun. But that changes everything because with virtual reality also comes the fact that actors at some very soon point will be able to license their likeness.
Yeah.
And not even be in the movie, but have their likeness in the movie. Imagine that. Right? Imagine Bradley Cooper saying, pay me $20 million and you can have my likeness. Right? And then your computer generators can generate whatever they want. I don't even have to act, but I'm getting paid because it's my likeness. I mean, we're not there yet, but that's coming.
Yeah. And also because we're losing a lot of audience to a gaming industry.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that the gaming industry has is it puts you as a character inside inside the VR game that you're playing.
Sure.
Whether it be, I'm not going to promote one thing or another, like a Neverwinter kind of thing or a different kind of thing. Any one of the 50,000 interactive ones. And it's like that seems to be where we are starting to deep dive into our attention span. How long do you think that it's going to be till movies actually start deep diving us in that same way?
Oh, I think it's going to happen soon. And, I know a little bit about gaming because I am a partner/investor in a video game company that turned into now a substantial software company
Mm-hmm.
that's based in Canada, Hong Kong, Singapore, and is doing well. But when we were primarily doing video games, I executive produced several. I co-wrote 5 and wrote 2 of them. And I can tell you that gaming is almost exactly like filmmaking in the sense that it's storytelling.
Yeah.
Right? A great game is a great story. An average game is an average story. It's the same, right? I think what's going to happen now, but with gaming, it's it is interactive. It throws you into it. But you know what else is interactive, Odette? Is uh, all these YouTube stars.
Yes.
And what's interesting is 3 or 4 years ago, a study came out that YouTube stars were worth more than film stars, in
Mm-hmm.
the sense that people care more about YouTube stars and follow their brand closer than they do film stars. And someone explained it to me in a really cool manner. They said, film stars are hands off, right? You can't get to
Yeah.
them. They're like America's royalty. You just can't hang out with a big star.
That's right.
Whereas a YouTube star or an influencer, they're direct. You email them on their channel, they're going to email you back. You tweet them, they're going to tweet you back. And you feel like you know them because they're direct, right?
Yeah.
And it's that closeness that made them bigger than a lot of film stars now. It's
Yeah.
interesting, isn't it?
It is, and it's like it is going to be the next level of where we're going to have to take things, because I mean, in terms of the Hollywood industry, in terms of actors, in terms of directors and things like that, we're no longer going to be able to be one away from our audience.
Yeah,
As,
I hope that happens soon. That would be so much fun. If that happens, the film runs will be a lot sooner, right? Meaning a movie won't have to be in a theater for 12 weeks to do extremely well. Because if it was all live interactive, you could just make it day and date, where on one day it gets released on every platform, like theaters, laptops, iPhones, everything, all at the same time, have the whole world experience it over a weekend, make your $1.6 billion and move on.
true.
Right? That
And
would be amazing.
it would be. And also platforms like Quibi coming out, it's like that's also starting to get a lot of buzz going on. Quibi, the ones that are the app ones that are coming out that are like that, where they're taking a film and they're actually dividing it up into subsections. I think that at that point in time, wouldn't it be a really fascinating thing? Or in your opinion, would you believe that it to be a fascinating thing if we could actually have a panel discussion while we're having those 15-minute breaks?
Yeah, it would be fascinating, but at the same time, the one thing that theatrical films has is the communal experience, like
Yeah.
the live communal experience, as opposed to the online communal experience, right?
Yes.
Because my nephew is a big gamer in Florida, and when he would play World of Warcraft or stuff like that, he'd be really good friends with people that live in other continents and only know them through their game, as you know. I know you know that, right? And
Yes.
it's a beautiful thing, but most of the people that he knew, he never met. Some of them he did, right? But it's a different world now. Everything is far more connected and far more interactive.
It is. And for a while there, they were trying to do things like the VRML Dream that was a little bit back, as well as also some other things that they were trying to do, like a production screening where it's like, okay, the buyers could actually sit in,
Right.
and the people could actually sit in, and you could actually have a screening time, and we all sat down and talked about it during the time and you got real feedback, real live commentary and things like that.
Yeah.
Are we working towards that again?
I certainly hope so. But you just triggered something. Can I jump into something real quick?
Absolutely.
I wanted to talk about a couple of big faux pas that will help filmmakers if they try to avoid them.
Yes.
Right. first of all, and this may be shocking to some people, but first of all, if you're taking a meeting with a studio, a distributor, a financier, or anyone that can get you to your next level, don't give them an NDA. Don't give them a non-disclosure agreement, because nothing, and I mean nothing, will turn them off and close your meeting quicker than saying, hey, it's great to meet you, and I'm really excited about what you do, and I'd love to work with your company. Here's an agreement I'd like you to sign, because I think you're going to steal from me. Right?
Yeah.
And it's crazy. And, I'll just flat out say, no, thank you, I'm not going to sign it. And if they say why, I say, well, my attorneys and everyone involved says it's not a good thing to sign, because I hear so many pitches all the time. It's impossible to say that yours is completely unique. But
yeah.
if people actually look deep into it, there are several articles in recent years that have said that NDAs don't hold up in court anyway.
Yeah.
All they're going to do is upset the person you're trying to get money from or trying to get a contact from, right? But
Yeah.
it's, and a couple of filmmakers, like this happened twice in my career, whereas they gave the entire pitch and then they throw out an NDA on the table and say, can you sign this? And I'm like, no, I can't. I signed it once and I regretted it. I'm like, wait a minute. If you would have told me that you wanted me to sign this before, we wouldn't have had the meeting. I would have politely said, no, thank you, and good luck, right?
Yeah.
So that's one thing. I think there's a lot of things that filmmakers don't understand, because here's the other thing. Yes, things get stolen. That happens. Of course it happens. But how do I put this? You need to be really, really good at what you do to get stolen. You need to be in the top 1/10 of 1% of creators to get stolen. Because you're not dealing with like small companies. You're dealing with multi-billion-dollar studios.
Exactly.
If they want something, they'll just write you a check, right? So, I mean, maybe not a big check, but if somebody wants something, it's easier for them to just write you an option agreement for $25,000 or a purchase for $50,000 or $60,000 and be done and own the property. So all these filmmakers that say, well, I'm not gonna give any script out to anyone if they don't sign a non-disclosure agreement, because I'm gonna get stolen. I've been stolen 5 times before. And I'm like, all right, well, whatever. But it's very, very rare that, it's not rare that things get stolen, but you've got to be an unbelievably good writer to get stolen. And if you already are that good of a writer, who cares? Because you have the ability to write another $1 million screenplay.
Yeah.
I know people don't like hearing this stuff, but these are things that if you know going in, it will help you a lot. Can I dive into just one or two more?
Absolutely.
For writers, do not put the copyright number or the WJ number on the cover of your screenplay, because that's blatantly telling the person reading it that you think it's going to get stolen. Now, if you don't believe me, get a screenplay from any major agency, CAA, William Morris, like any of those, UTA, ICM. None of them, 0 of them, have the copyright number on the front page. None of them. It just says the cover of the agency, the script, the writer, and then it starts. You can put copyright 2020, just don't put the actual number.
Yeah.
Right? Little things like that. The other thing is, one of the first things anyone's going to do when they read a screenplay is look at the back page to see how long it is. Right?
Yeah.
And if it's too long, they're not going to read it. So just be careful. People used to say that 120 is the limit.
90.
That's gone down a lot. For indie films, it's between 90 and 100. And for dramas, for indie dramas, I wouldn't do more than 110.
Yeah.
For indie comedies, 90 to 95. So when I get a 136 page script sent to me, I'm like, wow, this is one that's going to stay at the bottom of a pile for a while.
Yeah,
right?
this feels like War and Peace. And do I really want to read War and Peace right now?
Yeah, and there are, you know, for all those out there saying, hey, listen, I've read Tarantino's scripts and they're all 150 pages. Yes, they are. I read them too, and they're brilliant. And he has 2 writing Oscars, so he gets away with it. But he deserves to get away with it because he has 2 writing Oscars. If you get to that stage, you can do it too. But
Yeah.
as you're trying to get noticed, keeping it short will help you a lot. You know, which, and I know I'm bouncing around Odette, but also for filmmakers,
Mm-hmm.
when you make a short film, try everything to keep it under 10 minutes. And if you can't, really try to keep it under 15 minutes. Because
Yeah.
a 30-minute short is really difficult to program. It's not easy to program.
Well, which makes perfect sense because you don't want to. Then you're starting to get into a lot of lengthy stuff, and you're losing your audience for what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, and it's boring, to be honest, because it's 30 minutes is a really long time. Most sitcoms with commercials are 22 minutes. And then the HBO and Netflix sitcoms are 29, 28 minutes. So you're talking about something that's longer than all of those with stars or actors that people don't recognize, right?
Yeah.
And it's a lot easier to keep your eyes on someone you watch every week and someone that's a name as opposed to new actors, no matter how good they are, right?
True.
The other thing is, as a film festival owner, I'll tell you that most time slots are 2 hours long. Therefore, if you want to show a short in front of a feature, it's got to be less than 15 minutes normally. Because then if you have an hour and a half movie, 90-minute movie, 15 minutes short, you still allow for 15 minutes of Q&A. Right? But if you have a 35-minute short, there's no way you're going to put that in front of a feature because the audience is going to be deathly tired before the feature even starts.
Yeah.
Right?
They're going to be like, wasn't that the film that I just came to see?
It's true. It's totally true. You know, I just thought of a code that I'm going to build for your viewers.
Yes.
Movie time seal 20, all together, all caps. Movie time seal 20 will give 20% off if anyone out there wants to apply to the Lonely Seal International Film Screenplay and Music Festival.
Absolutely.
You know, all they have to do is go to lonelysealfestival.com or look us up on Film Freeway. So
most definitely, and which also comes there. It's like also with the film festivals growing and growing in popularity as well. That also is providing a new platform for there to be for the actual new filmmaker to be seen.
Right.
It's like I also wanted to ask you as well. What do you think? What are your thoughts on proof of concepts in terms of that? When somebody shows you a proof of concept,
I know why you're asking this because that's how we met. One of our common friends was making a proof of concept, right? I will tell you the same thing I told our common friend. Personally, it depends. I'm not a big fan of them unless you can keep them under 3 minutes long and not spend all your money on them.
Yes.
If you can say, look, I've got $2,000 or less, I'm going to shoot it in one day. I'm just going to create the tone, the energy, and what my film's going to be about, then sure, go do it. But don't go turn it into a $10, $15, $18,000 piece that you go on crowdfunding platforms to raise money for, because it's just as hard to make a short as it is to make a feature. It's just as hard, right? A feature might take longer, but you know, I've seen shorts I made a short that cost $55,000 in 2000, in the year 2000, back when we shot it on 35 millimeter and there was no digital, right?
Oh yeah.
But today, 55,000, you could do a full feature easily,
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
So my answer to your proof of concept question is only do it if you have people that want to see it. Like if you go to an investment group and they say, I'm kind of 50-50 on your idea, can you show me a scene? Then sure, maybe. And to be honest, the script that I really want to direct about my childhood, people
Yes.
people keep telling me that I should do a proof of concept, so I might. But if I do, it'll be less than 3 minutes long, and it will be one scene. That's one important thing about proof of concepts. Don't try to make a trailer because
Yes.
they're not trailers. And don't try to make a beginning, middle, and end. If you're doing a proof of concept, just make one gripping, beautiful scene that shows the tone of what your story is and really brings people there. And, just so your audience knows, my story, you don't see it because I'm sitting down, but I have a disability.
Yes.
My left hand is disabled and I have a limp. So my story is about a disabled Pakistani kid growing up in suburban Kansas during the Iran hostage crisis. So
Very cool.
yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's called Limping on Cloud Nine, which incidentally is also not a website, a podcast I do about my life. So if you people out there want to hear about my crazy adventure, just look up Limping on Cloud Nine on any of the podcast places, and you'll find me. But so I might do a proof of concept too, maybe, but don't break the bank for it. Just find one really cool thing to do and go do it.
Yeah. And it's like, would you say that if somebody wanted to, in terms of proof of concepts, it's like one of the things that we're told a lot of times is, show me your demo reel. It's like, what is the show me your demo reel? Your demo reel doesn't necessarily say everything about you. I'd rather that I hear from the person, why are you passionate about the project that you want to direct, or the passion of why you want this film made, as
Sure.
opposed to
And,
show me
and,
a demo reel.
and demo reels I'd stay away from because for the same reason that as an investor, I'll tell you this, filmmakers or writers should never send investors their screenplays, right?
Yeah.
Ever. And if you're wondering why, it's very simple. Investors do not know how to read screenplays. They may not know what OS means or what EXT means or INT or CU or smash cut.
Yeah.
But the problem is they're all millionaires. And if they weren't, they wouldn't be investors. So they're all super smart people or super lucky people that made stupid amounts of money, right?
Yes.
And their ego is not going to allow them to call you or email you and say, I can't understand what I'm reading. Can you help me? They're not going to take that step. It's easier for them just to close it, right? Just say, I don't get it. Just close it and say, it wasn't for me. As opposed to reach out to you and say, I don't get this. So just have a one-liner. Whether people like the one-liner I just pitched or whether they hate the one-liner I just pitched, they got it.
Yeah.
Disabled kid, Iran hostage crisis, Kansas. Boom. That's a movie, right?
Yes.
Whether you love it or hate it, you got it. So all of your pitches need to be down to one core sentence. And that's really all you need to give investors. There's a sentence of what I want to make. Here's my business plan. This is how much money it's going to make you back. But let me roll into the biggest key on landing an investor. Can I tell you?
Absolutely.
For all you viewers out there, underline the following. If you forget everything else, just remember this. Motion picture investors, by and large, do not need money. They are already wealthy. That's why they're investing in one of the highest risks in the United States, right?
Yes.
Motion picture investing is great for the right person, but most people that invest in movies are doing it for a tax break. There are many movies that I invested in knowing that I wanted the write-off, and if it worked, great, and if it didn't work, I had the write-off, right?
Yeah.
And that's how most big investors, not that I'm a big investor, but that's how most big investors think. They think, I'll tell you this, I've actually had an investor come to me more than once, same guy, 3 or 4 times, that said, Hamad, I'll give you $5 to $10 million for your movies, but under no circumstances can they ever make money. If they make money, you're going to put me in a tax problem. So if you just want to make a bunch of crap, I'll fund it. You get to play and you get to make some movies, but it can never make money. And so I haven't said yes because I'm like, dude, I don't want to make crap. I mean, I'm very proud of the fact that I went to UCLA Film School.
Yes.
Because it's something I wanted since childhood. And I'm not just going to make stuff to make stuff,
Yeah. You want to be proud to stand behind the work that you do.
Sure.
From a writing perspective or any of the other perspectives.
So
I have one more question for you. What is the movie that you want to see out there 100%? That would be like the movie that would be the one that sat there and said, I arrived. This is really this is really the moment.
I'm telling you, it's the one I've been talking about. Limping on Cloud 9 would be the one. It would be
very cool.
It would be the one. That's why, and I know this is going live out to a lot of places, so I'll tell you this. People could offer me $3 million for the screenplay, and I'd say no if I'm not directing it.
Yeah.
That's how much I really want to tell that story. Besides the fact it's my story, right?
Yes.
But before we go, how much more time do we have? I want to inject it.
We have a few more minutes. Yes.
Okay. So I want to tell people out there, I'm barely 5'4". I have a disability and I grew up in Kansas, which I love still. I love Kansas. But 98% of all of my childhood dreams have already come true. And can I just give you an image?
Absolutely.
When I was 5 years old in Overland Park, Kansas, I found a UCLA beanie in a snowdrift during recess, right? I walked over to it. I picked it up. My teacher at the time made me turn it into Lost and Found. I had no idea what UCLA was. I just loved the little baby bear sewn on to the, their logo, Joe Bruin, sewn on to the hat. And what wound up happening is I turned it into Lost and Found. Later that day, no one claimed it, so I took it home. I asked my mom and dad what UCLA was, and they said, that's Los Angeles, where it never snows. That's where the beaches are. And that school is one of the schools where they teach you how to make movies. So it became my life's mission to go to UCLA Film School. And what wound up happening is, I still have you.
Yes.
So it became my life. Wound up happening. Odette, I'm hearing it.
I'm here.
What's that?
Has it stopped? The there we go. There we go. It's back.
Is it back? Yeah, now it is.
Yes.
So can I finish?
Yes. Yes, please.
Okay, so I'm sorry about that, people. So what wound up happening is when I was 7 or 8 years old, I used to wait for my 2 sisters to go to bed. And then I'd sneak into the kitchen. I'd grab a plate out of the cupboard. I'd grab a salad fork out of the drawer. I'd jump onto our ugly brown leather sofa. The plate would become my steering wheel. The salad fork would be my stick shift. I would close my eyes and talk out loud to myself. And what I'd say is, my name is Hamad Zaidi. I live on the beach in Los Angeles. I'm driving my Porsche. I've got UCLA Film School tags on the back of my car.
Wow.
And I work in film. And every bit of that is my life. That's where I live. That's my car. That's where I went to school. So,
Oh my God.
so my reason of saying that is, God, if I can do it, anybody can do it. And I mean, anybody. So the only thing stopping you out there is you. And I also, lastly, I believe that 90% of success is just sticking around. If you just never give up, you'll eventually get to where you want to go.
And there really is no timeline for that. It's like it's the time you're limited by only your own creation.
Oh yeah, I mean, when I graduated UCLA in 1994, I thought I'd be where I am today by 1996. Right? As all of us did back then. But yeah, there is no time. There's no timeline. It comes to you when you're ready for it.
Yeah. And sometimes it's like, you know what, an opportunity goes so that you have the opportunity that's the right one and jumps into that right space.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I look back at my life and I would change nothing, including my disability. I would change absolutely nothing, because if it didn't happen the way it happened, I wouldn't be here talking to you and your viewers right now.
I have also a question on that. If you could turn back time and go as adult Hamad to a little Hamad back then, what would you say to Hamad back then?
I would say, kid, you're absolutely out of your mind, but never stop being out of your mind. And I just have so many.
Yes.
The thing about me finding the snow cap in the snow is just one of many, 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 many stories. Can I give you another one real quick?
Absolutely.
When I was young, and there's tons of these actually, but when I was young, I used to always want to meet John Lennon, because I'm an enormous Beatles fan, like a huge, huge Beatles fan. And so when he was assassinated, when he was murdered, and it was really, really, I was bawling my eyes out. I was actually watching Monday Night Football when Howard Cosell announced that John Lennon had died. And I was bawling my eyes out. What's funny is my mom, who is, just imagine a Pakistani Mrs. Brady from the Brady Bunch, right?
Yes.
She came to me and she goes, son, you can't meet John Lennon anymore, but you can be friends with his sons. He's got a son who is around your age. And I'm like, Mom, you're crazy. You're crazy. So I'm cutting a lot out, but 27 years later, I signed a contract to distribute Julian Lennon's documentary in 2007. And since 2007, Julian and I have remained good friends. So
very cool.
It's just crazy. I would tell myself back then, don't get frustrated. You're not going to be point guard for the Lakers. You're not going to quarterback the 49ers, but your life will turn out pretty good. And you'll get to tell stories for the rest of your life. So don't worry, kid. It will happen for you. It just won't happen when you want it to. That's what I tell myself.
And not in the way that you thought that it would happen, or are you surprised by the vision?
No, you know what? It's really nuts, because things just keep happening to me. It just keeps rolling. And do I wish that I were doing $100 million films? Of course I do. Of course I do. But I'm pretty happy with where I am now. It's one of those things. I was talking to my wife about this last night. It's the difference of saying I want something and I'm going to get something. Because if you start convincing yourself, look, I'm going to get this, it will happen. And I'll make another crazy statement right here for you. You want me to?
Go for it.
I'm not saying I'll get nominated because I probably will not. But if Limping on Cloud 9 gets made, someone in that film will get nominated for an Oscar. Somebody. May not be me, but somebody. That's just a story that I truly feel needs to be told, especially during our political times right now. But and I believe it. I believe it. I honestly believe that's going to happen. Of course, if it doesn't, people can email me and make fun of me. But if it does, right? If it does, you'll have this video from this day in 2020 to
Yep.
tell
And
people.
I'll be able to go, haha, people, see, this happened.
Again, I said may not be mine, but somebody's. You know?
See, and I think that is very possible and very doable.
Well, and I also think, Odette, I think that people want to work with people that they like,
Yeah.
right? And
Yes.
you want to dissuade yourself from working with people you don't like. I remember, and again, I'm not going to say names, but I remember being in a meeting, in a Hollywood studio meeting in the late 1990s with this senior vice president of a studio who was dropping the C word to his female assistant
Wow.
over and over during our meeting. And she started to cry. And I stood up and I just said, listen, man, I don't want to work with you. Right? And he's like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm a big deal. Your project might even fit here and we can do something with it. And I'm like, no, dude, you're just not somebody I want to know, much less work with. You know?
Yeah.
I just don't want you in my life. And I left.
Very cool. And it's like a lot of people don't realize that that's the way that we're meant to be in this industry, is we're meant to be with people who it's like we enjoy working with. It's not ego. And this person must have had a huge ego.
I mean, sure. I mean, I was honored when you asked me to do this interview, and I said yes instantaneously, right?
Yes.
And we worked it out. So,
which, by the way, we're going to be doing part 2.
No, I mean, you know, you ever want to do part 2, just find me. You know where to find me. But no, I love doing this, and I love just reminding people that they can do it. They can absolutely do it. All they have to do is focus, believe in yourself, and keep moving forward. That's all you really have to do.
Absolutely. And it's also keeping a positive side too, because I think that positivity helps.
Oh yeah, I mean it does. If you're a negative person, nobody wants to be around you. You know? But no, it's really fun. I mean, look at all the people we met at Sundance. They're all great people, but at the end of the day, you're like, you need to stay focused, you need to stay positive, and you need to know what your next level is going to be. Right?
Definitely.
So that's good. Anything else for you?
Well, it's like also as well, the viewers will probably want to know one thing also from you is how do they get you in social media? How do they interact with you?
Well, I believe I'm at Hamad H. Zaidi, which is Zaidi on Twitter, which I don't use much, but I have it. I'm at Limping on Cloud 9, also on Twitter, which is me as well. And I guess I'm on it. I'm on Instagram, but I don't use it much. They can always contact me on Facebook, or they can just email me directly at info@lonelyseal.com, or just hamad@lonelyseal.com. They'll both get to me. And remember, the code that I'm going to build for all your viewers who want to submit to my festival is Movie Time Seal 20, all caps, on Film Freeway will get you 20% off.
Well, which will be amazing, and I'm sure that it's like that you'll be getting a lot of submissions from people.
Well, I certainly hope so, and I'll make sure I set it up within the next 10 minutes, so it'll be set up for people to reach out to me. And I'm like, if you meet me at Sundance or Cannes, I'm this guy. This is me. I don't change.
Yeah.
Right. So
it's very true.
Yeah. And so approach me, say hi, and I'd love to talk. There's no ego
Very
on this
cool.
side. You can't have an ego if you're 5'4" with a disability. You can't, right?
True. Well, you can.
No, I just love people and I love meeting people. So if you're around, say hi. I'd love to talk.
Yeah. And it's one of those, you know what? It's like everybody has a fascinating story, and I want to hear more of yours too.
Oh yeah, anytime, anytime. You have more questions, I'll answer right now. If not, we'll do it another time.
Absolutely. It's like one of the things that also comes into there is that, well, we're also here in there. How much do you also feel that it's like we're getting back to our roots in the way that we're dealing with filmmaking, with shows, with everything? It's like television is also becoming interactive. We're all becoming much more also back to the whole TGI Fridays, the family programming, things like that. How are we in this political climate coming towards our roots, or are we?
Well, it's funny that you say that about political climate because I've always said who's in the White House dictates what kinds of stuff is made, right? Because Hollywood's always liberal. So when there's a liberal president in the White House, things like Argo win Best Picture, and that's a great movie, but you know, things like Slumdog Millionaire win Best Picture. And I look at
Yeah.
Slumdog Millionaire and I say, that film was supposed to be released on home video. It was never even supposed to have a theatrical. You know, it came out 3 or 4 weeks after the world financial crisis. So our banking systems completely fell apart. And 3 or 4 weeks later, that film comes out with no stars. Half of it's in a different language. And it's, you know, about a poor kid in India that becomes a millionaire.
Yeah.
That movie killed it, made $200 million, won 8 Academy Awards, right?
Yep.
Juxtapose that with this year, when Parasite won, you have a president in the White House that is not the greatest fan of minorities, right? And so
Yeah.
Hollywood,
No.
you know, he's not. I mean, I'm not going to say anything about him
Yeah.
aside from the fact that he's not.
No, he's
So,
really not.
so Hollywood puts more focus on minority stories, not just this year, but Green Book wins last year, Moonlight wins the year before. There's been a string of independent motion pictures that were either minority based or you know, that were minority based or smaller stories that have done extremely well during the Trump administration, right? But it's
Yeah.
not just now. It's, do you remember when um, okay, the 80s were all about money, 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 right?
Yes.
Everyone had 5 job
They said,
offers, right? Everyone had money in the 80s, in the
yes.
Reagan era. And movies like The Secret of My Success would get made and do well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you look at the 90s, all of a sudden it became about the anticlimactic antihero. Movies like and don't get me wrong, I love this movie, but Mr. Holland's Opus,
Yes.
beautiful film, wonderful film. But a detracting viewer would say it's about a high school music teacher that never accomplished what he wanted to accomplish,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That movie would have not been made in the 80s during the time where all the money was being made during Reaganomics,
True.
right?
Very true.
It's true. But then Secret of My Success wouldn't have been made in the 90s. You know,
Also very true.
and Slumdog Millionaire may not have been made if the world didn't fall apart financially, right? Or may not have been
Yeah.
released. So to answer that's part one, but the long-winded way of answering your question is that I think we're getting back to story. That's the roots I think we're getting back to. Because you can have $400 million for a Marvel film
Mm-hmm.
or a film that wants to copy a Marvel film, but if you don't have a great story, it's not going to do well. I mean, Birds of Prey did horribly, right? And
Yes.
just came out. So, or even look at, I'm not comparing Cats with Marvel, but Cats did horribly, right?
Hmm.
And that was one of the largest musicals ever made with super high end CGI, and it did bad. So
Yes.
ultimately, I always say it gets back to the story. If you ask me, I said earlier that I'd love to make $100 million films. Who wouldn't? But you know what I really want to make is the 20 to $30 million film, like the mid range movies that have budgets like um, The Hangover, like
Yeah.
medium budget films that do extremely well because they just hit a nerve, right?
Yeah.
I think the middle ground is what's going to come back. That's my answer. I think the 15 to 35, 20 to $35 million film is going to make a comeback because I think studios are going to say we're going to do two or three of these $400 million films every year, but we kind of need to make the middle ground a little bit more so we can every now and then have a hangover that costs under 30 and makes 300 to,
Yes.
right, to balance out all of the other stuff.
Yes, the ones that cost you 400 and made 30.
Right, exactly. Or even cost you 400 and made 800, at which point you didn't make any
Yes.
money because half of it's taken by the exhibitors, right? So
It is still a 5 to 1, or is it a 7 to 1 on ratio for movie to be considered a
no, I
success?
think it's 3.5 to 4 to 1 theatrically, right?
Yeah.
Because on average, and these could change, but on average, the exhibitor will capture 52 to 53% of the money.
Hmm.
So if only 47, 48% is coming back to the studio, plus they've got to take out the 30, 40, 50 million that they put in for advertising for the big movies. They've
Yes.
really got to do extremely well to break even, right?
Yeah.
That's why a lot of filmmakers, it's funny you mention that. A lot of filmmakers don't realize that. They think, well, wait a minute. Movie cost 400 million, made 500 million, they made money. No, they didn't, right?
Yeah. They actually lost
They
money.
lost a lot. You know, I just saw over the weekend, I took my kids and my wife to, what's it, the Harrison Ford movie that just came out?
Oh, Call of the
Call
Wild?
of the Wild. And I enjoyed it. The weird thing is, I'm walking into the theater and Daily Variety sends me a text, you know, their updates. And the text is
Yes.
Call of the Wild is to lose $50 million, right?
Wow.
And I get that text right as we're walking into the movie theater. So, you know, it's fun, but it was a
Wow.
beautiful film, but it was also released in, you know, in February or January, one of the low times of the motion picture industry, you know?
Does timing also affect that a lot, or is it that because we've always been gone through there are times that movies are just put in that they're the ones that you want them to consider for the Oscar movies, the ones that they're considered for the summer blockbuster
Sure.
versus, but is there really, it's like, I know that things do come in spurts and waves, but is the spurts and waves more along the lines of timing, or because they had to release it, or because it actually is something that they're trying to juxtapose and see if it would have been successful?
Well, that's a great question too. And timing wise, a motion picture has to be released for 7 consecutive days theatrically in either New York, Los Angeles, or I believe Toronto
Mm-hmm.
before the end of the year to be considered for an Oscar. And if you backtrack, that means that December 25th, Christmas Day, is
Yes.
the last day of the year your motion picture can be released and still be considered for an Oscar, right? So also the reason that holiday films don't do well, by and large, I mean, Home Alone did great, and there's a handful of Christmas movies that do well. But the reason that a lot of Christmas films don't do well is because you only have 6 weeks to sell them. If you think
Yeah,
about it, right? Because you only have Thanksgiving weekend through Christmas.
for sure.
And no one's going to go watch a Christmas movie in March unless it's Bad Santa, which was an awesome film. I love Bad Santa, but that wasn't really. Well, I guess it was a Christmas movie, but a fun one, a rated R Christmas movie. But besides that, generally the Oscar contending movies tend to be released between Labor Day and Christmas, right? Generally speaking.
Yes.
And then, Silence of the Lambs was released in January or February, but they did something really interesting back in 1991, 92, whenever that was. What they did is they released the DVD right before Oscar voting season because they thought that all the voters would have forgotten the film because they released it like in the beginning of the year. But they re-released the DVD right before the Oscar voting season, which put the film back in everyone's mind again, all the voters. And, it won a couple of Oscars, including, I think it won Best Picture. I know it won for Anthony Hopkins. So, there's a strategy for everything. And summer-wise, obviously, tentpole films, the big ones, are the ones that get released in summer. Although I will say this, Odette, summer is stretching, isn't it? It used to be.
It is.
It used to be summer films got released from Memorial Day to Labor Day.
Yes.
And then they started going backwards in May, and now they're early May, and you might even get one in late April because they're trying to get a jump on the box office, right?
Absolutely. They do try and do that as well, and they're trying to capture all the people who are going away, the spring breakers.
Sure. I mean, movies are still America's cheapest form of entertainment, right?
True.
So.
Except it's this is also another thing that has also been another bone of contention for a lot of people in terms of going out to a night of the movies. When you're looking at it, it's like a family of four. If the average movie is $10 a person, let's say, and most of them are closer to $15.
Where is it $10 a person? Come on, it's not in Los Angeles. Maybe in the Midwest.
Yeah, I'm talking about in rural America.
Okay, all right. Out here,
there's some of
$15, $16 a person.
Yeah, so you're $15, $16 a person. You take 4 people to your movie. That's there. It's like one of the brilliant concepts that they have in a lot of the theaters now is actually putting a dinner in with the movie.
Sure.
Which actually does make it a night out.
Yeah, but think of it this way. We went to a matinee on Sunday when we saw the Harrison Ford film. And our tickets were $13 each, and the girls' tickets were $12 each. So what is that, $50 for 4?
Yeah.
Our snacks, popcorn, all that, was what? $26, $28, right? So just
Average.
to take a family of 4 out to a movie with drinks, snacks, and 4 tickets during a matinee where it's cheaper was still $78 or $80.
Yeah. In an evening, it's about $100. And then, of course, and of course, after the movie and before the movie, you're going to want to, or either before or after the movie, you're going to want to go and eat someplace.
Oh yeah, if you add dinner, then it's $150.
Yeah,
but that's still a lot cheaper than going to a Lakers game.
Correct.
Right.
Yes, definitely cheaper than the Lakers game. And a little bit cheaper than going to a Broadway show.
Yeah, definitely. But what about, are there any questions that filmmakers have that you can think of that will help their career directly that I can answer?
Well, yeah, it's like one of the ones that they want to look at is the cycles of genres that a lot of them want to look at. And this is something that a lot of people have had debates on because it's like, you get the year where there's 25 zombie films, then the 25 vampire films, and 25, whatever the genre is of romantic comedies or, it's always baffled me in terms of that, of where it's like, I know that everything still does remain in there, but why the cycles actually happen.
Well, let me start by answering this. Let me start by telling everyone what genres almost never work and why.
Yes.
Right? Number one, romantic comedy, which I actually love romantic comedies, but they almost never work. And if you think about it, you can only come up with 8 or 10 romantic comedies ever that have worked on a large financially successful scale.
Yes.
Only 10, right?
Yeah.
And there's really not that many. They just don't work. They don't work for the same reason that most comedies don't work. And that's because in comedy and romantic comedy, what's funny in America is not funny in Zimbabwe. And
Yes.
what's funny in Germany is not funny in Pakistan, right? Or China.
Mm-hmm.
So comedy and relationships are intrinsic to the country in which they were made, right?
Yeah.
That's also why action movies almost always work, even the stupid ones, right? Because you don't need to know the language they were made in to understand the story.
Yes.
You don't need to speak English to know Rambo, to understand Rambo, you know, or any other major action film. So
True.
the thing with horror movies is that they time themselves out a lot. Slasher films are not really in favor these days. Maybe they're starting to get back, but I really doubt it. They're not because too many of them are made, right?
Yeah.
And if you think,
It's the jump scare.
yeah, and if you think about it, the horror films that really have done well are the ones that make you think, not the ones that are really slasher based, right?
Yes.
Um, you know, Jordan Peele's first film, Get
Get
Out,
out.
Get Out. Amazing film, but it was amazing as much for the social commentary as it was for the fact that it was scary as hell, right?
Yeah. It kind of took that whole guess who's coming to dinner concept a little bit in a
Sure.
twisted manner.
Yeah, and that's the kind of stuff that people want these days. Or even
Yeah.
back in the 1960s, you know, there was Rosemary's Baby. And if you watch that movie now, you know, the fear in it is all in the viewer's head of what they can
Yeah.
assume is happening, not a bunch of killing and slashing on screen. Right?
Yeah. It was much more interesting to have. It's much more interesting to see the thing that goes on in your head than it is to see the actual slash and kill there on the screen.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that that's why horror movies have that. I'll tell you one thing that's really growing
Mm-hmm.
are not families films, but religious films specifically, right? Because
Faith-based.
you know, faith-based. There's a lot of faith-based outlets right now. The problem with faith-based stuff, and not that it's a problem, but as of right now, they're all around the same budget range. Like there hasn't been a huge faith-based movie, although there have been huge successes, obviously, right?
Mm-hmm.
There have been a handful of very, very large successes. But if you're a filmmaker out there and you want to make faith-based material and you keep it within a certain price range, like $350, $400, $500,000, there are places out there that will distribute for you, and you will make money, and you'll make a healthy amount. You know, if you get into it, you could probably spend $375,000 on a faith-based movie, make 500,000 back, what 33% profit, and keep moving. You can do that all day long. So
Well,
that is growing.
So what is considered to be faith-based? Because this has now started to be opened up as well. Is it faith-based in terms of religion-based, or faith-based in terms of positive messages, or what is faith-based now?
You know, that's a great question. When I hear faith-based, I always think religion, specifically Christian, because that's what the outlets are, right? That's what the distributors that do faith-based, that's what they want specifically. However, it's changing because family films are changing. Like what's considered a family film is changing. Last night at 1 a.m, I was watching Maid of Honor. You know,
Yeah.
The Patrick Dempsey film from 2008,
Yes.
and it was on HBO Family, and which is fine because I would consider it a family film, but there are jokes about fellatio in that movie, right? So what was considered family when I was a kid is expanded a lot. Right?
Yes.
So that's happening a lot. I mean, Disney Family changed their name to no, ABC Family changed their name to Freeform
Yeah.
and really opened up what they consider to be family. So it is growing. It's growing. But you know it's funny, when I was back in film school in the 90s at UCLA, they considered Liar Liar to be a family film. You remember that movie?
Yes.
If you think about it, maybe it was.
Well, there was two versions of that movie. There's two different Liar Liars. So you're talking about the one with Jim Carrey.
The Jim Carrey one, yes.
Yeah.
The one where the lawyer couldn't lie for 24 hours, right?
Yeah.
Or his son's birthday wish was that he couldn't lie for 24 hours. So what's interesting is back then it was just considered a straight comedy, but a few years later people started saying, you know what, that's the model of the modern day family film, which
Yeah.
is interesting. So what else do people want to know?
Well, and we've redefined, though, also what family films are as well. It's like a lot of this is starting to redefine generations in terms of that. It's like also in terms of with film that they're looking at it from the how one breaks into the industry.
Sure.
It's like there isn't a standardized way of breaking into the industry.
Yeah, well, everyone's going to have a different opinion. Mine is that I went to film school and luckily got into heaven for me. So
Yeah.
I went to the film school I've always wanted to go to, and UCLA opened every door for me. I went to the graduate producers program, and they only take 11 or 12 people a year. So my year there was 11, I believe, and
Wow.
I loved it. I mean, every bit of it was heaven. It opened a lot of doors for me, and I still keep in touch with them because of what they did. So if you go the film school route, that's one way to go. You can also just make an indie film and hope it gets into a big festival. And I say big festival because it's funny me saying the following because I own a festival, right?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of festivals that can be enriching for you and that can help you. Hopefully mine's included in that. But there's only a handful that really matter in the world. I mean, you've got, in no particular order, although I'd put Cannes at number one, but you'd put Cannes and then
Yes.
Sundance, Toronto, Berlin, Venice.
AFM.
Well, that's not a festival, that's a market.
Yeah.
Right? That's a film market. But
True.
But festival, I'd add South by Southwest. Slam Dance is really great. That goes along with Sundance, during Sundance. And Tribeca. And maybe Telluride because they showcase films beautifully. But outside of those, no other festival is going to really change your life. In the sense that, let me clarify that. No other festival is one that you can win and have people say, oh my God, they won that festival. Let me write them a $10 million check to change their life and let them go make another film. Right?
Yeah.
Sundance can do it, Cannes can do it, Tribeca can do it, you know, South by Southwest, Telluride, Toronto, Venice, they can do it. But most other festivals, it's just good to have it on your resume, but it's not going to get you immediate money, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Right? The other thing.
Well, yeah, because.
Go ahead.
Well, because it's like it's great that it's notable, but it's not something that is completely commercial, so to speak.
Yeah, and buyers aren't there. That's what it comes down to.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I will say about my little festival, our winners get showcased at our booth at Cannes. So that's one big reason to apply. Is the winners of my festival will get showcased at my booth during the Cannes Film Market of the next Cannes. So the festival's in October, Cannes is in May. So the winners of last October are being showcased this May, and it'll keep going like that. So it's a good thing.
Very cool.
Yeah, no, it's a good thing.
Oh, yeah. And also another thing that it's like you make mention also of UCLA, but for all the people who do actually go to film school, it's like, do you find that also with the film school environment, though you learn a hell of a lot? And I went to Ryerson, you went to UCLA.
Oh, you went to Ryerson in Canada?
Yeah.
That's a great
I went to Ryerson, a postgraduate university graduate from them.
That's I know, the video game / technology company that I'm a partner in is based in Kitchener up in Canada.
Yes.
So I love Canada. I'm all about Canada. That's great.
Is it the one with the B, which we won't make mention of?
Which one?
The one with the B.
The B. Which one has the B?
Blizzard.
Oh, no. God, I wish. If I were no, I'll tell you. It's the company.
Yes.
The company's called Industry Corporation. And
yes, I know them.
Yeah. So it's I'm not shy about anything. And it's a great place to be. They're great people to work with, and I love them. They're family,
Yep.
But no, I didn't know. So anyway, finish your question. You were talking about Ryerson.
It's like dealing with both Ryerson, UCLA, USC, all of the film schools. It's like when you're in there, it's really, really a sheltered environment with that. It's like, do you feel that also after film school that a lot of people should be taking on smaller positions in other films to be able to have that opportunity to be able to really see what an unsheltered would be, or just make your movie?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I actually think my experience is very different because when I was in film school, 90% of our teachers and instructors were heads of studios and major players at studios. For example, Peter Guber, who currently co-owns the Dodgers and co-owns the Golden State Warriors, back when I was a student, Peter was the chairman of Sony, which meant he was the head of Columbia Pictures, the head of TriStar Pictures. Enormous producer, for those who know who Peter Guber is, right? And Tom Sherrick was one of my professors, who was the head of distribution of 20th Century Fox at the time, who went on to be the president of the Academy, right? So these were instructors. Arnold Rifkin was an instructor. He was a worldwide head of William Morris at the time, right? So these were titans of the industry. Kathy Rabin, she was an instructor. She taught development. These are enormous people that came in and said, this is why I bought Last Action Hero. Let me tell you why I cast Michael Keaton for Batman. Those were the experiences we were having at UCLA, which is why it was so cool, right? But, But one thing I will say about film students is in film school, and I think you can attest to this, a lot of film students think the producer is the assistant of the director. True?
Yeah.
They do. When they're in film school, they're like, well, I'm the director. It's my vision. You're just my producer.
Yeah.
Go get me coffee.
Yep.
And I always tell
they interchange producer for production assistant. Yeah.
all the time they do. And the funny thing is, I always tell young filmmakers, go watch any studio film and tell me what the first credit is. Because it's producer. It's a so-and-so production of a so-and-so film. Producer always goes first. And I also tell people the best picture Oscar goes to the producer, not the director. The only directors that get best picture Oscar are the ones who are also producer of the film. Right?
Yeah.
So film school is really sheltered, but you know, I also think that it's a wonderful experience for those who want to have it. And I also think you learn how to make mistakes there before you make mistakes for an investor, right?
Very true.
So,
Oh, I don't regret it for a minute going to university and going to have the education. Absolutely not.
no, Ryerson's a tremendous school. That's a great school. I have friends that went to Ryerson.
I do admit that that using the Bell and Howell was a little bit extreme in terms of and the bullets, and I was like, okay, I'm back in the 1920s.
But you know what? I'll age myself. I learned how to cut. Actually, when I was an undergrad at Cal State Northridge, I went to 6 schools, right? I graduated from 2 of them.
Yeah.
But when I finished my undergrad at Cal State Northridge, I learned how to I learned how to splice actual film.
Yes.
Right? So
it's amazing.
Yeah.
The feel of it is just so wow.
It's very different. I didn't learn on a laptop. I actually had to cut. So, I mean, that ages me a bit. But yeah, everything's changed now. Now it's easy. I actually think that cutting on film taught me really well because you had to decide exactly what scene you wanted. As opposed to now, it's easy. You just change it. And if you don't like it, you change it again. Right?
Yep. And the precious amounts that film costed in terms of that, it's like you didn't want to waste any of it.
Oh, yeah. Again, $55,000 for my short film in the year 2000. Yeah. It wasn't cheap. That certainly wasn't cheap.
Yeah. And honestly, it's like to this day, I sit there and say it's like it's great that we turned into the digital age, but it also made a lot of filmmakers lazier in the digital age because they didn't have to worry about footage and timelines.
Well, not just that, but I remember a time, to me, it's not too long ago. To everyone else, it's before they were born. But I remember,
not me.
Yeah, not you. But I remember a time, Odette, where you had to mail in a print to Sundance and Cannes. You just couldn't.
Yes.
And then after the prints, they're like, we'll never take DVDs. And they started taking DVDs. Then you had to mail in DVDs. And then they're like, now we just want uploads, right? So it keeps moving. It always keeps moving.
But it also, it's like, yes, it's been freeing in terms of budgets. This is the one thing that I've often said is, okay, we're in a technology age where we have so much software available to us, so much digitization there. Why are budgets of films also so extreme?
Why does somebody want to have a 38,000 square foot house that costs $150 million?
Yeah.
Because they can. Right? If a studio is willing to give a Marvel director $400 million to make Star Wars, take it. Right? Why not?
True.
But I will say this. There's different levels because at Cannes, I see a lot of films that were made for a 20th of that.
Yeah.
But that are also animated. But to be honest, and I'm not trying to be mean, but there's a very big difference between a $4 million animated film and a $100 million animated film. They don't.
Very true.
They don't look the same, right? And they're not meant to look the same, I guess. But that's why I always say that South Park is one of the most amazing shows of all time because they took rudimentary animation and made it hip.
Yes.
And kept it and never tried to update it. To me, it's awesome. I love that show. But
yes,
I love that.
Instance.
But they found their niche and they go with it. And recently their backlog sold for $500 million.
Wow.
$500 million.
Very cool.
Yeah. To stream it, I think.
Oh yeah. So here's an interesting question that I often ask in terms of filmmakers. Do you think that the audience is changing in its appetites, or is it the fact that the films are changing to be able to have to suit the audience?
I don't think the audience is changing its appetites much. And I say that because, for all of our friends in the Midwest, and I know you know what I'm talking about,
Yes.
how many friends have contacted you on Facebook and said, what is Parasite? I've never even heard of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
And not just with Parasite. Last year's Green Book, a lot of my friends from Kansas were like, why is it that every year these films that win Best Picture are films we've never heard of? Right?
Yeah.
And I remember, my point is that everything is so splintered now. Movies are made to very specific audiences, right?
Yeah.
Because so many are made now. I haven't seen the exact numbers, but I checked a few years ago, and Sundance had something like 13,800 submissions. Think about that
Wow.
for 1 year. Just think about that. Hey, we might have somebody that wants to ask a question.
Hello. Come on in and join us. Very cool. It's like we have our viewers. It's like they'll come in and join us. Hopefully, jump into one of the boxes if you have a question that you want to ask.
Grab the spot. Oh yeah.
Yep.
Oh, he's texting. Can you get him to jump in one of the boxes?
Yep. And he says, guys, like, come on in.
Oh, he's at work. I've got one word for you, man. Quit.
Yeah.
Start your own company. You're better than that. I'm kidding.
It's like, so ask us the questions you want to know.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to ask. While he's coming up with a question, do you want to ask me something else?
Well, yeah, it's like another thing that is also happening in terms of this. It's like a lot of people say that with film and with stories, it's like we only have a certain amount of stories, but yet there are unique ways to tell each story.
Of course.
Do you think that as we're progressing through the industry, it's like that we're actually reinventing the wheel, or are we actually just regurgitating the wheel?
No, I think we're definitely regurgitating the wheel. And I think the key to have a successful project is to take something that's very good and feels fresh, but is a slight twist off of something else. And I'm not saying, when I write my story about my childhood, that's my story, my experience, and it's fresh to me and hopefully to people out there. But at the core of what that story is, it's just a coming of age story. And there's been billions of those. Yeah. Right? So you could really melt my story down to just a coming of age story of a 12-year-old boy. Right? But
True.
how I tell it might be different. So
yeah,
I think it's just reinventing the wheel with your own voice. I think that it's very cool that these days Hollywood's allowing more voices to be told. And go ahead.
Go on.
No. And it doesn't matter if Hollywood allows it or not. There's still enough platforms for stories to be told. So even if the majors don't want you, there's still 300 places to sell it. Somebody will see it.
Very true. And is there voices though that it's like we should really be seeing more of in this industry?
Oh yeah, but I think that's happening. One thing I noticed a lot is isn't everybody noticing a lot more interracial couples on television? Which is a beautiful thing. Not just in commercials, but in shows, and it's turning into normalcy, which is a beautiful thing. Hey, we have somebody else too.
Hey, let's see. Come on and jump on in.
So no, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So what was I saying, Odette? I'm getting distracted by these people.
What we were saying is that in regards to it, that voices that that you're looking at that should be being more highlighted.
Well, I definitely think women should be more highlighted. I definitely think the LGBT community should be more highlighted. And I think it's wonderful that both of those things are happening. You know, I
Very
think it's a beautiful thing, because stories stories need to be told. That's the bottom line. Now, whether it's told by, you know, a middle-aged disabled Pakistani dude in Redondo Beach, or if it's told by a 17-year-old, you know, Russian girl in Russia, or young woman, stories need to be told. And so, with so many platforms out there now, I think it's a beautiful thing that there's so many ways to tell your story.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, it's basically our little sign there is saying that we're going to be down in about 5 minutes, because that's very odd. But definitely one of the last questions I would love to ask.
Sure.
Other than that, is like, first of all, will you come back to us again?
Of course, anytime.
And second, it's like, in terms of adaptations, there's a lot of very enriching books that are coming, that it's like come into films. What would you say that it's like would be an interesting genre to like a different medium to take, that would be an interesting thing to come into film?
You know what? I'll even take that a step further. There's an article that came out 3 or 4 or 5 weeks ago that said that this year, 2020, I'm not sure what date, but there's like 1,500 or 2,000 public domain books that are going into the public domain.
Yeah.
Which means that you don't have to get the rights to them to retell their stories or to base a screenplay on those stories. That's the first thing I would do, is go there to see what's going into the public domain and how you can retell a beautiful story that's several hundred years old, right? I think dramas are always really difficult to sell. I mean, even with my childhood story, I had to make it equally as funny as it is dramatic and tragic for it to feel balanced, right? And dramas are really difficult to sell. And also, this is going to sound bad, but it's true. Super intelligent stories are also difficult to sell.
Yeah.
Right? The least common denominator stories are easier to sell. That's always been the case. Yep. Always. So if it, and I'm not saying whether they're good or bad. I mean, The King's Speech is a beautiful film, but it also caters to a more intelligent crowd than does just a flat out comedy. And
sure,
both are completely valid and great things to do. And I want to reiterate that. You know, it's funny with my film festival, people think because we focus on women and LGBT and minorities and stories aching to be told, people think that I don't want comedies. Let me tell you, I love comedy. The Blues Brothers is my favorite film. I love comedy. And I always tell all my screeners to look out for comedies, because people think that I'm a really serious person, but you've hung out with me. I'm not that serious, right?
True.
I try to be pretty jovial. So just because we say we want stories aching to be told, that does not mean we want dramas. That means anything that's told well.
You just want a good movie.
That's all
Something
I want, a good movie. You know what?
Yeah.
I'll leave your viewers with this. If you're writing a screenplay or you're making a film, if you can make people laugh or cry, you're halfway there. And if you can make them do both, you're there. That should be, you know, whether they cry from laughter or cry from tragedy, if you can make them laugh and or cry, or both, you've got something that people will respond to. Definitely.
Absolutely. And I also wanted to say thank you very much for joining me here.
No, I love doing this. I love doing this,
yes.
And hopefully we'll do it again.
Absolutely. We will. And to all of you, it's like, I hope that you have learned a ton more, and you'll see us next time again on Movie Time.
Take care.